Well, howdy, y'all, and welcome back to the Deprogram. As far as we know, this is episode 166. I think we may have gotten our numbers mixed up at some point. We are the most professional podcast on planet Earth. Today, we wanted to do, now that our big wet boy is in office again, Donald Trump is back, we wanted to do a retrospective on President Joe Biden. His greatest hits, if you will. And his greatest hits are all terrible. So, just to preface, liberals in the walls, all that stuff, we are not excited for Donald Trump. His admin's going to be just as shitty or shittier in different ways than Biden was. They all serve the same
Just
team.
a side note. A side note on this is because I've seen one person say this, but in case this is a common sentiment, they're like, oh, you talk about the Democrats a lot, but you never talk about the Republicans, because the Republicans, even amongst like quasi-liberal or like even centrist, center-right people, they know the bullshit of that's a team that's already so thoroughly hated, and we will do plenty of hating on them now that it's their turn. But the Democrats are ones who pretend to be good-willed,
right? It's the Malcolm X
or
quote,
well-intentioned,
right? Yeah.
Exactly. So we need to really deconstruct these and tear them apart so that people know that they don't keep falling for this bullshit, the blue MAGA, basically. They stop falling for it. So that's why we're so harsh on the Democrats, because they're fucking all ghouls and war criminals and servants of empire. And the Republicans are also that, and they're all going to be hanged on the same meat hooks outside the city gates, inshallah. But until that day comes, we need to thoroughly ideologically educate you in discerning that what benign evil from just pure. Right,
unadulterated, proud evil, if you will, But that's the thing. Like, you have a lot of Americans who are like, I don't like the conservatives because they're icky and they say these things outright. It's like, okay, we're gonna show you now. We're gonna hold your hand that the liberals also do this stuff, which you'll see in some of the points we have here for you today. But they're bad too. They're bad too. That's all it is. And if we talk shit about the Democrats a lot, it's because this podcast started during Biden's presidency. So now that we've got didn't it?
Yeah,
it did, right? Yeah. How long have we been doing this pod?
Yeah, I think plus minus. Yeah,
plus or minus. Anyway, Trump. We're gonna wrap it up here soon, guys. Don't worry. But Trump's back. We'll talk about him soon. But this one is dedicated to our boy Joseph Biden, and we're gonna start with one of his greatest hits, and that is the overturning of Roe v. Wade. Now, for those who don't know the history, Roe v. Wade was a 1973 Supreme Court case where the court ultimately ruled that the decision of whether or not to continue a pregnancy is up to the individual, not the government. They decided that the wording of the 14th Amendment protects the liberty of privacy, which includes ending a pregnancy prior to fetal viability. So between 1973 and its repeal in 2022, the
50 years.
50 years. A long damn time.
Nobody bothered to codify it into law. Nobody bothered to make it a proper, like something immutable. None of this, right?
No. And we'll see that there was opportunity for that. But during this time, the Supreme Court repeatedly reaffirmed the right to abortion was an essential liberty. So come 2022, the court reversed their decision in a case called Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization, and this marks the first time ever that the Supreme Court has taken away what they considered a fundamental right. Now, since the ruling...
No, it won't be the first.
No,
won't be
certainly
the first,
not.
Boys.
This is one of many. I can't wait to see what's next. It's going to be great. But this, over a dozen states have banned abortion outright since the ruling, which has forced people to either travel hundreds of miles to legally attain a safe and above-board abortion, or to get a backroom abortion at risk to themselves, or to carry a pregnancy against their will, which humanitarian organizations have called a grave violation of human rights. As the court became more and more reactionary, and this is especially since 1992, they tacked on a range of restrictions that made abortion harder to access for people of color, the poor, the young, and immigrants. Of course, right? Why not?
Typical.
But the 2022 ruling was just the nail in the coffin, frankly. So, but why did Biden let this happen? And to be completely fair, both Clinton and Obama had a better shot at codifying Roe during their presidencies, right? Obama had a supermajority, and he really, really could have done it. But, let's be real, Biden would have squandered the opportunity same as them.
Yeah.
And more than that, Biden did promise that he would codify Roe, right? So he just lied.
Yeah. If I could just kind of butt in here.
Yeah, please.
For the people wondering why would they not do this, right? It's such a clear and easy political win. Why wouldn't they do it? This is the reason. Because if they codify it into law, it stops being a campaign trail talking point.
Exactly right.
Keeping it as a fearful thing that, the Democrats might take it away, so you need to vote for us so that we can keep this. It's one of the many things. Like, there's several of these points, critical points, but this is one of them, right? Mm-hmm. And this is exactly what happened with the overturning and under Trump and whatnot. And now in the subsequent elections, as we've seen with Harris and with Biden before him, and of course whatever comes after Trump, this will be again a Democrat talking point. So we'll never actually move to things more pressing or more quote unquote progressive or useful for the population. We'll still be discussing shit that should have been made into law decades, almost a century ago, or in a series of elections coming, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly right. I mean, it's the Democratic establishment is not a real political party that actually gives a shit about normal people, right? They are a fundraising operation. All they do is they raise millions of dollars to run garbage candidates and sink progressive ones, as we saw with Hillary and Biden and Kamala.
Jesus Christ.
Right? I mean, the whole point of their campaigns was to sink Bernie, like the one milquetoast social democrat. They're like, no, that is scarier to them than a Trump presidency, right? Because they can play off the Republicans where they can't with Bernie. So the Harris campaign raised not millions of dollars, but $1 billion. And then they lost in a historic sweep. Just absolute garbage.
Yeah. Please remind me, what was the thing? There was a poll that came out just last week, which mentioned that amongst undecided voters, the single largest percentage reasoned that they would not vote for Harris because of blank, 29%. What was that blank? Could you please tell me?
Yeah, dear listener, just think for a moment. What do you think that could be? Now, we'll tell you. I'm sure you got it right. It was Gaza. Of course it was Gaza. The thing that all the pundits and all the online personalities were like, oh, no, that didn't matter. Trump just activated more of his voter base. Like, you idiots. You fucking morons.
And what actual people on the ground who would speak with the, like would try to mobilize would tell people, it's like, yes, this is the thing that people fucking care about. If you're wondering, by the way, the next largest percentage was 24%, and that was the economy. They were undecided because of Kamala's economic policy. More people were concerned about what was going on in Palestine, the genocide in Palestine, than were about their own economic security and future, and the United States, we know, is not easy. But that really goes to show you that they lost an election. This is a monumental and beautiful thing to have happened, because it means that the power of the lobby, the AIPAC lobby, and other pro-Israel lobbies have been shifted, a person who went up for election lost despite overwhelming support from this lobby for the first time ever. And it was such a high-stakes election. It's the presidency of the United States. It's not some fucking senator in Montana or something, which would be big enough, right?
Yeah.
And also, it goes to show that American people, particularly young Americans, care about these significant humanitarian crises. Right? They don't want. They're not the generation of Americans that just went gung ho on the Iraq War, for example. Right? Plus minus, that might be me being a bit too positive too.
No, I agree with that. And there's a point in here I've got to tell you, you beautiful piggies, about some anti-communist education stuff coming up. But a lot of Gen Z, or I think 1 in 5 millennials and 1 in 3 Gen Z, have a favorable opinion of communism. Like the tide is turning, right? We're getting there slowly but surely, and there's only so much they can do to keep a lid on that. But yeah, historic bag fumbling by the Democrats here. And the bottom line is, talk about Roe again, they need these hot button issues to raise funds from their naive supporters. The Democrats say if they get into office, they'll codify Roe. They say they'll stop building the wall. They say they'll support universal health care. They never do any of that, and they never will, right? They're just going to lie about it until the Republicans eventually get the power to remove that as even a possibility, as they did with Roe.
And the ping pong then continues.
Exactly right. But I mean, Biden did a lot of things wrong, but this one will go down as probably one of the more damaging ones for the American people.
Yeah. Absolutely. Moving on, we just mentioned the goings on in Palestine, so let's mention a little bit the genocide in Gaza. All right, This is one of the biggest fumbles of the 21st century for the United States.
Yeah.
Diplomatically, Afghanistan, Iraq, and Libya and Syria, all these were also catastrophic. What they're doing in Russia is also not doing their best for their image around the world. Like aside from like Western Europe and North America, nobody shares the perspective that the United States has on that conflict. So they don't look good there. But the genocide in Palestine is significant. And let's just walk through what the Biden regime did. For those who are unaware, Israel remains the largest single recipient of U.S. military aid over time. Since World War II, generally, if you're counting that far back, Israel has received $158 billion in total assistance. Sometimes it depends, the number is larger depending on certain other forms of aid that they've gotten, but this is the most common number that you see. Most of this, by the way, is military aid, and this is the largest cumulative recipient of U.S. foreign aid. Think about that. That is a significant for such a relatively insignificant country in population and whatnot, right?
Yeah. And just to jump in for a sec, like what's baffling to me is, Israel is always touted as, our most important ally, our greatest ally. And then if you ask an average American, like, name one thing Israel has done for the United States, you get nothing. Nothing.
They destroyed the USS Liberty and killed American servicemen, which I couldn't give a shit. That's the only base thing that they've ever done. I hope Israel and the United States do go to war amongst themselves and destroy each other. But joking aside, this is honestly the only... Israel has assassinated American citizens. It has attacked American naval vessels, attacked American servicemen and other American military assets. It has repeatedly not returned the diplomatic favors and diplomatic cover that the United States gives for them. They're just like, in the very Zelensky type, gimme, right? just give me more. I don't care. And it's not even a gimme. It's like, you will give me more. It's a demanding, almost threatening mafia-like thing. It's the strangest. The way you see Israeli politicians talk to American ones, you'd think it's the other way around. You think that Israel is the U.S. and the U.S. is, right? But we know why.
It's the one homie who doesn't have money when you're ordering pizza. He's like, get wings. It's like, okay, all right.
Exactly right. Yeah. Side tangent, actually. I think the cultural equivalent for where I'm from is what do they call it? It's like a cheese ball with like cheese and hot peppers inside that you deep fry, and then you take it out and the cheese is melty and there's like the bits of chili pepper.
You mean
inside.
like a jalapeno popper or something like that?
I get like that. That's the equivalent. Okay. That's the cultural equivalent for me. If you're going to any like neighborhood fast food place, they're gonna be like, oh, get the cheese, the cheese balls, the melted cheese balls.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, I was gonna say, when it comes to Israel, this is not to say that Israel controls the United States. No, there's a very significant lobby, and it's one lobby amongst many. In the United States, there's a pharmaceutical lobby, there's weapons industry lobbying, there's many other kinds of lobbying groups in the United States, and the pro-Israeli one is just one of them, and they have done tremendous work. Not tremendous. The tremendous has a positive connotation. Significant amounts of work into forcing themselves into almost the entire structure of American politics, right? From the like local community elections all the way to the presidency, right?
Yeah. And importantly, both parties.
Yeah, exactly right. Without any distinction, and that's why there are certain very nice. Projects like the AIPAC tracker project, which basically details the significant donations that various American politicians have gotten. And you think, like, you look up your local district. If you live in the U.S., look up your local district, right? That person has most likely, the person in office right now has most likely received bribes from AIPAC. Or lobbying and campaign donations, but what they are bribes. That's why they influence the interests of Israel influence American policy so much, and this has its own logical limit at the end of the day, because it's becoming too diplomatically and economically costly for the United States, and eventually there will be a breaking point, whether now or later, it doesn't matter. But the biggest evidence that this is going to happen is that Israel itself is trying to pull itself away from relying solely, like it has for the past 4 or 5 decades, on American arms by trying to establish now from the newest directives weapons industry in Israel that's capable of meeting all their domestic needs, which is even great because it's, I'm not even gonna say actually you bleep it, but it's so they can go on. You agree that this is bleep worthy? Yes.
Yes, I agree. I will bleep it.
All right. Anyways, moving on. So I mentioned the $158 billion in total assistance. Prior to the current goings-on since 2023, through the Obama and Biden presidency, there's the Memorandum of Understanding that was signed, which is a 10-year period passing a total of $38 billion in military aid to Israel, which equates to roughly $3.8 billion annually that they're going to be getting, which is, again, a ridiculously large amount of money for how small Israel is as a country. I don't think there's a single U.S. state that has a smaller population than Israel.
Yeah.
Right. It is an incredibly small country, both by population and by everything else. Anyways, since the start of the genocide, aid levels going from the United States to Israel have not only increased, they've outpaced increases to any other American ally. Meaning comparatively Ukraine, which has such a significant requirement for military aid and other kinds of financial aid, but the amount contributed to Israel by the American ruling establishment has been several times greater than even for Ukraine, which is ridiculous to think about. So we can kind of break it down like this. Between October 2023 and September 2024, the U.S. has approved at least $18 billion worth in security assistance to Israel. About $6 billion, give or take, was designated just for missile defense. So for Iron Dome and David's Sling and David's Arrow, or whatever it was called, the Arrow system. All of these things that were made jokes, like the Hamas missiles very easily break through, and now, Yemen, Iran, and Iraqi drones manage, and it's a... you take your pick. If you want to call it the nylon dome or the iron foam.
Iron foam.
You take your pick. Anyways, by just December 2023, so December 2023 is two months into the genocide, plus minus, the U.S. had delivered over 10,000 tons of weapons, so worth around $2.5 to $3 billion to Israel. That same month, the U.S. used emergency authority to expedite the sale of 14,000 tank shells worth about 110, something like that, $1 million for immediate delivery to Israel. They don't do this for healthcare. They don't do this for abolishing or reducing the student debt. They don't do this for infrastructure projects. They don't do this for the fires. They don't do for not anything else. What will it take for the American population to realize that the U.S. government does not give a fuck about them?
Yeah.
They do not care. You can burn up in a fire tomorrow, right? Or you can die from carbon monoxide poisoning because they remove fucking restrictions, right? Or you can die in flooding because of climate change. They don't give a fuck, right? Because they don't care about your healthcare, they don't care about your education. Your kids have to wear fucking bulletproof backpacks going to school, right? At what point will you realize, like, I'm preaching to the choir.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. It's we'll see. I mean, like, I've seen people a lot of people. Yeah, they're turning, and I've seen some people say, like, "Hey, maybe these left accelerationists are right," which is, they're joking, but like the fact that that's a sentiment that is now being widely expressed is kind of it's pretty telling.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving on, by March 2024, the U.S. had approved more than 100 individual arms sale agreements to Israel. In April 2024, Biden signed a $96 billion security package, which includes something like $17 billion in military aid for Israel. The entire Israeli war effort throughout the genocide is believed to be between $60 and $70 billion, and it was all on credit. It was all borrowed money. And the United States wants to, at least in part, foot that bill. That's your money. That's like
insane.
That's your school lunches and like your fucking roads and potholes and your healthcare centers. That's instead going to support genocide on the other side of the earth. Yeah,
it's wild if you think about it. I mean, it's like all these billions in wealth or just important functional spending siphoned off, sent to blow up people on the other side of the world that we have more in common with than any of our oligarchs.
Yeah,
and the only reason that this is happening is because these oligarchs and our elected officials are getting a tiny sliver of that back into their own pockets.
Exactly right.
That's it.
They get kickbacks through like weapons industry because I'm a board member or my wife is a major investor and stands to gain dividends or whatever the fuck from this. And it's like, really, for the $400,000 or whatever that you're gonna make off of this,
that's worth it. Yeah.
Is hellfire really that cheap to you? You fucking ghoul.
All right. Okay. You're going on the list.
Exactly right. Oh my god. All right. So Moving on, the U.S. vetoed or blocked multiple United Nations Security Council resolutions that were looking to condemn Israeli military actions or call for a ceasefire. They did this time and time again, even from the very first one, where the U.S. vetoed a resolution urging a quote-unquote humanitarian pause because they said it was one-sided, meaning as in it benefited the Palestinians, but didn't benefit the Israelis, which is a very ghoulish thing to say. The United States likewise, by the way, something I love, every single time there's war crimes to happen or genocide to be justified, the United States sends a person of color to represent, right? It's always, you know, I love it. And that's why, again, we don't like the identity politics stuff. Like we have an episode on intersectional, you know, early on, you can listen to that. But there's a reason why, you know, being like, oh, you know, more fucking female war criminals is not, right?
Yeah. Not a compelling argument, not something we need to engage with.
Like, what was it Biden that said, like, oh, if you're a black man and you don't vote for Kamala Harris and you ain't black or something?
You ain't black. Yeah.
That
was the one good conservative comic that ever came out. Did you see that one?
No.
Where there's this black lady who's yelling, "I'll never vote for you," and she's being held back by like two Secret Service agents. Yeah. And then Biden, like this ghoulish Biden, holds out a hand and says, "Well, then I'm afraid," and like touches her forehead with his thumb.
Oh yeah, he
and sucks the black out of her. It's like, you ain't black.
Yeah.
I was like, geez.
Oh, that's so fucking funny.
God, he's a ghoul.
Yeah. Oh, he doesn't even know what he's doing. He doesn't know what he's saying, man. The guy he was a monster, but now he's just he's a
husk.
Yeah, exactly right. He's like the ash that's fucking left over. Anyways, despite many calls from like lawmakers, human rights organizations, and even Americans' own legal code, which they're supposed to stand by, the Biden administration refused to condition military aid to Israel, which would be in compliance with international law. They're supposed to do it. And of course, regardless of this, the significant military aid packages have continued without pause, unabated, even as Israeli war crimes become more and more undeniable. And this is just another one of those things that is forever a black stain on the Biden name, I guess, and this administration and the Democrats and United States history just in general, which is that this cut and clear, like absolutely undeniable genocide by one side that it exists in a like settler colonial ethno-supremacist milieu, I guess, or setup, creating out basically ethnic cleansing and mass killing of the indigenous population, while systematically denying them their rights, both like socially and economically, but also physically, being able to like a free movement, whether it's in Gaza or the West Bank, where there's no Hamas. But there's still hundreds of people that are being killed. There's still raids into Jenin camps. There's still arbitrary arrests. Like just yesterday or 2 days ago, they raided into a camp and just arrested 60 random people. Right?
Yeah, just terrorism.
After they released the 90 that they were supposed to for that day from the Palestinian side, they went and they just replaced them with a bunch of other Palestinian prisoners. It's just there is no end goal here where Israel can remain. As it currently exists, right? There's another question if it becomes truly democratic, where everybody has one vote for one person, one vote, but then it ceases to be Israel, and that's why it's not allowed. That's why there's apartheid. But that's the thing. The United States put itself on the mantle of defending genocide, ethno-supremacism, and this clear, like cut and dry apartheid system, just like they did for South Africa, just like they did for their own history when they were very clearly an active settler colonial project, right? Not a settled one like they are now, where basically the indigenous population almost doesn't exist. And another thing to kind of keep in mind.
Yeah, it's that I think, and I don't think there's going to be any debate here, is that this is the defining thing for the Biden regime is Gaza. Is the genocide that it woke up so many of the American people, that completely tanked the Democratic Party probably forever at this point, and that has put so much blood on the hands of every single American politician, and revealed to most people here that Israel is a horrific genocidal apartheid regime that must be destroyed. So they've that's quite a legacy. For Joseph R. Biden. It's quite a legacy. But let's talk a little bit more about the domestic stuff now. Joe Biden doubled down on overfunding the police. Biden, he talked a big game about reforming policing, asserting that Black Lives Matter and saying how terrible Trump's record was on police violence. But of course, like everything else, here again, Biden turned out to be a massive hypocrite. And people will kind of just, wave it off and say, yeah, but we need police. Biden couldn't just defund them.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Here's the thing. I'm going to let you in on a little secret. Not only did Biden not defund them or stop their militarization, he more than doubled their funding. So let me give you some numbers. Here are the policing budget requests for Trump's first 4 years, 2018 through 2021. $150 million, $153 million, $156 million, $157 million. Okay, so those are some big numbers, right? Then Biden takes office. First year request, $388 million.
Hey.
That is insane.
There you go.
Hello, dear listener. Editor JT here. This has been a little sneak peek of one of our monthly exclusive Patreon episodes. If you want to hear the rest, support the show, get episodes a week early, and lots of other benefits like access to our Discord, check out our Patreon at patreon.com/thedeprogram.